Do you ever wonder what happened to your friends from high school? I mean, you were so close. You laughed together, you cried together, you shared some of the best years of your lives together. And yet, somehow through life, you just lost touch. Now it's time to relive those moments once again. Introducing the podcast that takes you back in time to the place where it all began. This is Class Reunion. We're bringing you all the gossip, secrets, and scandals from your high school days that you won't want to miss. Join us as we catch up with old classmates and dive into the wildest stories from our high school days. From those legendary parties to the infamous cliques, we're spilling all the tea on who's who and what really went down. So grab a seat, turn your volume up, and get ready for a trip down memory lane. Class Reunion, the podcast that reunites us all. Welcome back to another episode of Class Reunion. I have a very special guest with me today. My very first best friend since first grade, Nancy Crouch, is joining us. So please welcome Nancy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You and I actually talked quite a bit before this, so full disclosure.
Yes.
But you had the most interesting, because I was going to say, please share like how we met and everything. And then you said you won't believe what just happened. So can you share going to the movies with your daughter?
Yes. So last weekend I went to see Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And boy, did it bring back a lot of memories for me. The opening of the movie had Margaret. She moved, and Nancy happens to be the other character in the book, which I did not even remember. And she comes to the door and says, hi. Basically, I'm here to not play with you. She was a little bit more bossy than I was, of course. But it reminded me when I moved in and I knocked on your door and said, are there any kids to play with? And so that just brought back a lot of memories.
Yes, I could not believe that the movie was a direct replay of how you and I became friends. You know, it was like I came home and my mom said, there's a girl that knocked on the door. Why don't you go over and introduce yourself? So I did the same thing. I went to your house and then that was it. We were like thick as thieves. Yes. After that, which was so fun. So I loved that. And we have kept in touch ever since then. So we went to elementary school together, obviously, since first grade. And it started me thinking of like some of the fun things that we had back in the 70s. And I remember the plastic tote bags. Did you had one? Okay. Yes. And remember, we were so short. I mean, I don't know why we thought we weren't going to scrape them, but there was always a rip on the bottom of those book bags. Yes. And we had to put our snowshoes and boots in there. Mm-hmm. I sound like I'm saying walk to school in our bare feet, but basically that was it. We all walked every day unless it was storming.
Right. We did.
Did you have a lunchbox?
Yes.
Or were you paper bag?
I had lunchbox.
Okay. Who was on your lunchbox?
Hello Kitty.
That's awesome.
I think. If I remember correctly. Yeah. Hello Kitty. I loved Hello Kitty.
Yeah. And we had like pens and pencils and all that kind of stuff, school supplies. And I had hot bologna sandwiches with ketchup, which is disgusting.
Disgusting, yes.
Yes.
I had peanut butter and jelly.
Like every day. Yeah.
And I'm still like that.
Oh, I know. Me too. I mean, it's a classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
So we would wait in line to get into the gym and they would take a key onto the wall and unlock all of the tables that came out from the wall with the bench seats. Do you remember the sound of that? Like you just knew the janitor had those key rings and you could hear all the keys jingling. And then one by one, all the tables went out. We went in. And if you had 5 cents, you could get milk.
I mean, now that you're saying this, I remember all this, but I wouldn't have remembered that without you at all.
It was a lot of fun. And we had sleepovers constantly. Mm-hmm. So I do want to talk about that because it is such a controversy now.
Right.
A lot of parents are not allowing their children to do it. So we were annoying to our parents. It was a matter of whose house was going to let us spend the night. Mm-hmm. Right. Because we'd be up all night giggling and looking through Teen Beat and Tiger Magazine. What do you think the difference is and how did you raise your kids with sleepovers?
Well, first of all, I remember our moms talking in between our houses about how could they handle us wanting, and they were saying maybe they should limit us. I do remember that.
Yeah.
So with my kids, I have to say I hated the sleepovers too because I never got any sleep because they were always, up, same thing, making a lot of noise, cooking. And then when they got older, I worried about them sneaking out and because they did and, just all the other things. So I didn't, I mean, I did it for birthday parties, I did it rare occasions. And then, when they had best friends that I actually liked, then I would be all right with it. So, but not as much.
Was it about knowing the parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
so
the
in
kid.
a way, I mean, our parents obviously knew each other. We were one house away. For everybody listening. We were actually one house away all the time together, but we still went to sleepovers at other people's homes for birthdays. And we did walk. Right. We did go out. Like we did do all the things that you were worried about.
Yeah.
We did it. We've talked about this, you and I, many times, like the security factor is higher now, but all of the fears and all the things that could have gone wrong, we had anyway. So, and yet those are some of the best years of our lives. It's kind of ironic, really. So do you remember, I've asked this question before on social media, Andy Gibb was our first concert.
Yes.
And your mother was kind enough to drive us in her station wagon with the paneling.
Yes.
And you just reminded me the other day, I knew she had earplugs in, but share what she did during Andy Gibb's concert.
I remember we had good seats in the pavilion at, I think, High Knob. Yes, we had really good seats. I don't know why, but we did. Everybody was standing up screaming, and she was just sitting there knitting with her earplugs in, rolling her eyes. And I thought, that's a really good mom. But then, she was a good mom, but she got disgusted with us when he took off his shirt, and we just were screaming our heads off and thinking that's like the best thing ever. And you reminded me, she went to the car with my daughter. She wanted to go. Now I'm going to forget the name, but here in Chicago, it was all the music stars and one after the other. And I remember thinking to my mom the whole time going, okay, I'm not going to knit. I don't even know how to knit, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be into this concert. But it was the longest thing ever because there was 10 different music acts. So I was thinking of my mom during that time.
She was a trooper. Her name was Dreama, which was such a classic name.
Yes.
And doesn't surprise me that she was musically inclined, and your dad and mom, both were really into making art, which is right behind you, which is a great picture. And then my house was the opposite. So we were all, Kentucky Fried Chicken or Long John Silver's, and you used to be fascinated that we would go out and get fast food because you actually had a home cooked meal at your house. So we had such polar opposite upbringings, which I want to get into later, but pretty interesting.
Yes.
And I miss your parents. They were wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful to me and put up with us, basically.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Let's talk about the influence of teachers. And we're going to do that in high school. But there's one significant story, and it reminded me of my brother after you and I spoke about this as well. Commending teachers. Kudos. It's absolutely true. They do a lot. They nowadays, they have to put their life at risk. There were a few back in the day, and still are sometimes, that put an impact on you with things that they've said or done. Let's talk about Mr. Broughton, because I remember this vividly after you shared the story.
I was extremely shy, and still to this day, my face turns red at times when I'm embarrassed or whatever, still to this day. But I remember I was painfully shy in elementary school, and he thought it was just hilarious that my face turned red, even when he talked. When someone talked to me, my face would turn red, especially a teacher. And he got the whole class to say redder and redder, like making fun of me. And that was just that memory. Sometimes I don't remember a lot, but I remember that stuck in my mind about, how cruel that was. And, but I stood up for myself. I remember standing up in the class. I was crying and saying, stop. That's so mean. You just need to stop it. But, I know he did that to other people too. And I remember my mom was furious and just talking to him about the impact of that.
I mean, there's, we all have such different personalities at that age, and to point them out like that can be crushing,
Right.
I mean, I hated reading aloud in class and all that kind of stuff because you don't want to fumble on a word. It's embarrassing.
Right. Yes.
You really remember those moments in time.
Oh, you
later
do.
in life. It's crazy.
Even in graduate school, it brought me right back to 5th grade because I had a teacher, when I raised my hand, it was statistics, and I'm terrible at math. And I raised my hand to ask a question, and she said, I'm not going to answer that. That's what you would do in 5th grade. that would be a question for a 5th grade math
No
teacher.
way.
And I was like, oh, she was so mean. She did in front of the whole class. And I thought, Mr. Broughton reincarnated. Sorry. But that was I was how old? I mean, I was 22 and that happened. It was terrible.
Oh
terrible.
My gosh. We were also from the era that teachers were right 100% of the time.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you were called out with your parents or there was a note that went home or whatever it was, whether it was correct or not, like the parents believed the teachers. And then over time, that's almost shifted too heavy where the kids are always right and the teachers are wrong. So there should be a better balance. But Mr. Kramer was one that I remember I had such trouble with, and I didn't like that he was so mean to people in the class. My mom was like, you need to pay attention. And do you remember in Berkshire Middle School when he came with a beanie on top, like a little propeller beanie and a trench coat? And he was naked underneath, and he went running through the halls. I mean, the police came shortly thereafter. So,
see, why don't I remember that?
Well, I was in the front office for some reason, so I was helping or something like that, or turning in attendance. Remember, we'd go to the class or to the office and turn in attendance. That's so funny. But yeah, and so the police came and took him away, and I couldn't wait to get home to tell my mom, like, see, I told you.
I was
so
right.
Obviously, he did have some mental issues, but I was right.
Yes, you were.
Speaking of my mom, and I've mentioned this before, but she worked at our high school, Gross High School.
Yes.
She was the receptionist. But when you and I had some of our greatest moments were when we were young, and I became a latchkey child for the first time. That was a new term. And I was going home by myself. And I remember getting called in the office asking how I was adjusting to my mom working like it was the strangest thing in the world. And I felt different from that moment because I didn't know it was really an issue. All I knew that you and I were going to go home. I was going to turn the key. We were going to watch General Hospital and have ding dongs. And I did look it up. It was ding dongs.
I thought it was king dongs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the chocolate thing from Hostess or Twinkies, whatever we ate. And we just sat and watched General Hospital every day. No problem.
Right.
Luke and Laura's wedding. I mean, we had to walk home fast for that one. And your favorite snack was?
Cool Whip. I would eat it right out of the...
Just right out of the bucket.
Yes. Yep.
With your Diet Coke, which you still drink to this day.
I still have it right here.
I mean, you really should do a commercial because you've been a loyal customer since 1976, I think. I don't even know. And so when we were talking about General Hospital, it was also making me think of Michael Douglas. Do you remember the Mike Douglas show? It would come on after General Hospital, and he had guests, and he was like our Oprah Winfrey back then.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember him.
And he had like these big flowers in the back, kind of similar to what I have, big flowers. And Tiger Woods was one of his guests. And I still to this day remember this little 4-year-old kid putting a golf ball and getting him in like crazy. And I was like, Michael Douglas was our Oprah Winfrey back then.
Yes.
Okay. He had every movie star, and it was, something we watched right after school. And then let's talk about the phone. We had, of course, the phones that were on the wall or on a table with the cord. And I know I stretched my phone all the way from the kitchen to a bathroom. To talk to you. Like every day after school. I remember my grandma came to visit and she said, my gosh, these girls just left each other. What on earth are they talking about? I mean, we would literally get in our house and call each other.
Yes, we would. And what did we have? I don't know. Anything and everything to talk about. We did. Ran out of things. Yep.
We never did. And we never have because we're still busy talking on the phone for hours on end like we did the other day. I want to share before we get to high school real quick, other core memories. And I'm going to say this. We have a friendship. Oh gosh, I might get choked up. I'm sorry.
No, I know. I was thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, we go so far back and all of these important times in our life. It's just crazy that fortunately for you and I, we are still together and communicating. It's like so special. But we've had some really great times and ups and downs. And I want to talk about those because I think it's important for people to realize we've had a friendship that's passed the test of time. I mean,
it has.
And I think that if there's anything about this podcast, you can go back and reunite with people and let that stuff be water under the bridge and get through it, because those were moments in time that just made you who you are today. And I think we are Judy Blume. We are a testament of all of those first boyfriends and first bras and first, all that stuff. And it really does bond you with someone for life, in my opinion. It does. So we were thick as thieves, and now we're starting to change, and we're in middle school or junior high. And we were both going to try out for cheerleading because we did everything together.
Yes.
So do you want to walk through that experience from your perspective?
I so desperately, since we did everything together, I so desperately wanted to do cheerleading with you. But I still to this day am very uncoordinated. And I finally told my children as adults that I don't even think my husband knew this. Well, he didn't until recently, which is funny. That's one story. I was like embarrassed that I tried out so many times and never made cheerleading. I can laugh about it now, but it was hard because you were so kind to me to be my little trainer in the backyard and over again, but it just wasn't going to happen. So I remember going, oh, I don't want to do this. But then I wanted to be with you. So I was like, okay, maybe one time will work. Because I think I tried out how many years?
Each year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Each year. And I remember knowing that I wasn't going to, when we had to do those jumps, I couldn't do them. And then, it was really hard because, of course, we lived one house away, and the squad would come, cheerleading team would come to your house, and they would scream and surprise you and do all that. And then I would be looking out the window, hoping after your house. I was always so happy for you, but hoping after your house, they would come to mine. And they never did. So that part was really difficult. And I remember asking you, was I nice about it? Because I was hoping, was I excited for you? Was I nice about this? Like, did I show like that I was really hurt? I hope both, but yeah, that was a really hard time. I was never a cheerleader. I was never on the homecoming court. I was never what, you were. And I had to play the stupid violin, and I hated it. And, it was, that part was hard. So,
well, first of all, thank you for sharing that from your perspective. And Nancy's right. So the heartache was so difficult for both of us in that we were a house away. And what Nancy's talking about is, in order to know you're on the squad, the upperclassmen come and congratulate you and let you know you're on the squad by driving to your house and beeping the horn and bringing flowers. And you can imagine being in a neighborhood where you're hearing that happen and the cars coming down with the horns, and they pull in my driveway. And I remember, you definitely saw what was happening, but I remember standing on my porch with my mom and you with your mom, and we just stared at each other. And yes, you've always been my hype person, my hype friend. But I also ached for you because I think more than anything, it wasn't so much that you weren't going to be with me. It was that you tried so freaking hard. You really did. Well, I'm just saying, we really did practice. It wasn't like, you really worked hard at it. And so I felt bad for that. But interestingly enough, and we've talked about this, it's not always what it's cracked up to be either. No. I didn't know a lot of the girls on the squad. There were just unique things that took place. Right. The grass is always greener. And again, going back to the diversity of our households, yours was much more on the art side, which that brain side never worked for me. I couldn't play an instrument. I couldn't sing.
Neither could I.
And, but
I was in the family. Yes.
You were in the family, and your mom had voice lessons, and all of her students you could hear them bellow through the neighborhood with these beautiful songs. And she introduced me to plays. So Oliver Twist was my first local production that you and I went to. And the different things that each family brought, I thought made our friendship even more unique because we were two different households.
Yes, definitely.
What I'd like to do is go to high school and talk about sharing lockers.
Yes. We shared lockers throughout forever.
Do the kids do that anymore?
No, they have their own lockers. Mm-hmm.
Right. And we crammed your coursework, mine in there, in one tiny little locker, food, shoes, everything. I don't know how we did it either. And it was like such a sign of like who you're going to share your locker with. And we were like consistent. It was us in high school every year together. And I shared with you that I remember there being a Polaroid of us, Polaroids, first of all, of a West Virginia family reunion that you took me to.
Yes.
And it was really special, and it was important how you decorated your locker. And big sign of our friendship. So there was a teacher opposite of Mr. Broughton who you shared was influential in changing how you thought about yourself, which I loved that you told me about this. So I'd love to have you give a little insight into Joe
Staslicki.
Okay, there we go. He was an English teacher at Groves.
Yes. Such a nice man. Because I didn't know at the time, but I struggled with attention deficit disorder. But at that time, that wasn't a thing, or it was for boys, but not girls, I guess. But so I struggled a lot with school, and I was not a very good student at all. And so, for the gifted and talented program, you had to have a high academic. That was a big part of it. And so he was part of the committee that decided on the gifted and talented. And I think probably he saw that I had, just a difficult time, but I really wanted to be a preschool teacher. And so he came up with the idea of nominating me for gifted and talented, even though I didn't have very good grades. But he saw something in me that I could be a teacher, and this would be something wonderful. And he knew I was good with kids, so that I could be part of the program. And he also wanted to do something different and not make it all about just your grades or your academics. So he was honest and told me he had to fight hard for me because of my grades, but he did it. And then, so, I was very proud of it, and also gave me a great experience with preschool and teaching. Didn't end up being a teacher, but it was more so that someone believed in me, and a positive teacher, not someone that made fun of me. And we were talking about the guidance counselors. I had a guidance counselor said that I wasn't college material. And I think, how horrible is that if I listened to this person? And I was thankful I had parents that were like, no, you're going to college. We're going to figure it out, make it work. So you think about how your life could be so much different if someone didn't believe in you, or if your parents weren't, you're going to go to college, or you're going to do something, vocational school, whatever it is.
And
very important.
We'll get into what you've done as your career, but it was so up your alley to have that side of you with children, because it's been something that I think is in every yearbook signing we have together, you and I, from junior high to high school, is about getting married and having kids, and it was always such a big part of what you saw yourself in the future.
Yep.
So you were in student council as well. Is there something, looking back, is there advice that you would give yourself today, looking back?
Well, I would just give myself more grace and more kindness, because I was always very hard on myself. And, and it was okay to not be the cheerleader or the homecoming queen, or even on the homecoming court. It was all okay. It wasn't, because I did develop a lot of friendships, and I would still say advice that, have friends in different groups of, and I did. I had friends that were in the quote unquote popular group, or were cheerleaders, or obviously you, but I also had friends that weren't, and that were in all different groups. So I think that's really important. And just because you don't fit in that mold, which I didn't, there's other molds, there's other things that you can benefit from. So definitely just to give myself more kindness.
No, I so agree with that. I will say this generation seems to have that mastered a little bit better than you and I did.
Right.
Because they know there's other things to be than just a cheerleader.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I've got some sweet news to share about Old Time Candy. They're all about bringing back the classic candies we grew up with and love. How, you ask? With the Decades box, of course. It's like taking a time machine back to your childhood, only sweeter. Personally, I've ordered from Old Time Candy to add some pizzazz to friends' milestone birthdays. And wow, was it a hit. Each box is jam-packed with goodies from the decade of your choice that will transport you back in time with a single bite. Plus, this family-owned business has been run by candy lovers for candy lovers since 2000. So if you're eager to relive the good old days, go ahead and check out Old Time Candy. You won't regret it. All right, now let's get back to the show.
So you had a special delivery today, and I just wanted you to pick out a candy that reminds you of times that we had together. So we would, normally take a quarter and go up to the store and get some candy. So Nancy's in her decades box from Old Time Candies.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And I just want you to take a look and see what reminds you most and just name that candy that you enjoyed.
Bottle caps. I remember that.
There we go. Excellent. Yes. Isn't that amazing?
I love lemon heads. Oh, but my favorite, and I love this today, is the Laffy Taffies.
Oh, yes. I think I remember you getting Sweetwater Taffy all the time.
Yes, I did. Absolutely.
I'm going to give you some trivia here, too, while you're looking at the candies. People that were born in 1985 when we graduated, born. This is crazy. Katy Perry.
Yes.
I think that she was born when we were in high school. It's just bizarre. And eggs. Now that eggs are astronomical, they were 57 cents a dozen.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And $1 for bread, 95 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the days.
Oh, I know. I don't know what gas was, but I can only imagine gas price.
Gas was $1.10.
Wow.
Yeah. So talking about the teacher acknowledging, wanting to go into preschool and everything, can you fast forward to when you graduated and what fields you went into? Because it was so perfectly suited for you. And I'm proud that of every family that you have helped since then. It's incredible legacy based off of who you are as a human being and what you have to offer with the love of children and families. So if you can just maybe update us on what your career was after college.
Thank you. Well, I went to Central Michigan with LeeAnn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was on the wait list and almost didn't get in. So that's another thing. Oh, but I did. And thank goodness.
And we drove up by ourselves. Do you remember all the parents now put their kids in and they have fancy dorm rooms? We just went in my Chevette.
Oh, no, we did.
And it said CMU or bust. And
yes.
That was it. Our parents just were like, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, which is crazy. Now we make a big production about it. So I decided that, I wanted to work with kids, but then I decided preschool. My dad sat me down and said, you're not going to be able to probably support yourself on preschool on that type of teacher's salary. And, I couldn't believe my parents are pretty forward thinking because they were saying, you may not get married, you may not have a man in your life. So you need to be able to support yourself. And so he's like, just look into other options. So I did. And I ended up going into family studies, psychology, and then I got my master's in counseling. It took me to first foster care, working with children that have been abused and neglected. Then really my heart went into adoption. So I worked with kids, mainly babies, placing babies for adoption. So I did that type of work for 35 years and a very long time. Yeah, thank you. Ironically, when I did get married and we started to try to have a family, I couldn't conceive. And so the route was adoption, and it's what I've known. And so that was very exciting to be able to kind of go down that in a personal path and professional at the same time. I've just helped hundreds of families be able to adopt a child, and, because their paths have been infertility. And so that just was really close to my heart. So adopted 2 children, then I had 1 biologically. So it's been
Yes. And I always tease Nancy that the first 2 look just like her, and the last one is this athlete and tumbler and gymnast. And I was like, where did he come from?
He came from my husband's side, not the royal side. Yeah, no.
Yeah, three beautiful kids, very close together. And so I think that was, it's challenging for any new parent. But you had 3 real close together. And I would love for you to share Jack's story because he was the surprise.
Xander's 26 and we adopted him from Russia. And that was just a crazy experience there in and of itself. But we brought him home when he was 11 months. And then I had already gone through infertility treatments, but I decided I was going to go through one more time. We ended up getting pregnant, and that's Jack, my youngest. But when I was 2 months pregnant, I got a call for another child for adoption, my daughter, Catherine, and her birth mother was in Ohio. So I had a 2-year-old and I was pregnant 2 months, and then along came Catherine. So they're 7 months apart. And so basically I had 3 at the same time, 2 that were almost twins. And I look back at pictures and I was so happy. And I know I was so stressed out too. I'm not saying that, but it was just when you don't think you can have kids and then 3 come along, I just was like, this is wonderful. So very, very lucky, but very close in age. So it all worked out.
It was a triple blessing all at once.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted you to share that story because, it's not uncommon about infertility, but you stuck with it for such a long time. And there's a lot of ups and downs and heartaches. I learned a lot about the difference between artificial insemination and in vitro. And fortunately, at that time, you had insurance that was covering that process. My heart broke because, like I said, we're best friends who grew up who all we talked about was getting married and having babies. And if there's anybody that shouldn't have had that experience of the heartache early on, it would have been you. So what a beautiful way to come through that. And just the balance of your career and the personal story had to resonate with all the families that you helped as well. So I'm just super proud of you as a friend to just have that story behind you that, 3 beautiful kids. So, okay. Now we are to what the sweeter life looks like. Like I call this the third part of the segment of, Dr. Pepper's Unlocking the Sweet Life. And this probably, I would love to have you on another time as well, because I think you and I have so many stories that we haven't even opened up about. But this one is super interesting because it's what prompted me to get in touch with you about the podcast. And I said, hey, where are you feeling for this next journey that we're on, 50 plus? And we're in the midst of still needing to work in some capacity, but it's been a long road up until this point. And a lot of kids are gone and there's empty nests. So share with me where you are today and how you're feeling about everything.
Well, I mean, when you work 35 years and you're in the helping profession or any profession for that long, it becomes your identity. And, I am very proud of helping families and children, but adoption really has had difficulties in the last 5 years. And it's really been cut in half, the amount of children that are available for adoption.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which is interesting. I thought COVID would definitely increase that, but it didn't. And, when with COVID and all the countries closing for adoption, so a lot has happened. And to be honest, I just extremely burned out. I'm surprised I lasted that long in this career because it's just, you work all the time. You're never off and you're just, it's crazy. But anyways, so I decided I was going to quit. I had 2 jobs, 2 part-time jobs, but I decided in both adoption, but I decided I was going to quit. And that was November 30th. And it's been difficult just to figure out, what are you going to do next? Do you want to retire? And then I thought, I'm too young to retire, but then people retire very young. So it's not really about age, but who am I right now? And then I'm thinking, all right, so do I go into a different career or do I continue in some sort of helping profession? But then I don't know, you become frozen. Like, am I too old to retire or too young to retire and too old to get another job, or I don't know. I mean, it's a bunch of young, of course, young people getting jobs and they can be hired for less money. And do I still have the skills that are needed? And then it's just a lot of soul searching and a lot of, am I okay just not continuing to work? I'm just in a state of kind of flux and confusion and just feeling kind of lost.
I think too, the self-worth is so tied into your occupation for so long. And then when you are removed from it, it gets your psyche going back to almost when we were young again.
Yes. And
feeling insecure all over again.
Yes.
And you think, my gosh, I'm going to be 58 this year. I felt I was self-assured and confident.
Yes.
But, when careers start to wane and the value that people aren't giving you that you've always had is waning, you question your capabilities.
Yes.
And like you said, do I even want this? Because what you did was emotionally draining.
It just sucked the life out of me. It did. Yep.
Yeah. And we think about, I talked about this too, where we thought we were cool and hip and up with times because we have children. In the workforce, it's so different. And so you get to this peak of wisdom and knowledge, but then you're at the top of the pay scale and you're the first to go, or a lot of those situations. And it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? I've been dedicating my whole life to this career. Now I'm, somebody that can just be thrown out. And where do I go from there? What is going to be exciting? And I think what you're doing right now is valuable because you just need to rest and reset.
Right. And that's hard. I'm just starting to do that. It's just a whole adjustment. I had 2 phones for, just one for work, one for personal, but called all the time. And I didn't, I was so scheduled all the time and just never really present in one of the regrets I had with my kids. I mean, I know I'm a good mom and all that, but I wasn't completely present when they were growing up, because when you have women in crisis and I would have to go to the hospital, I would have to leave. I couldn't say, I have to call you back, I'm with my kid. I couldn't do that. So many wonderful parts and just rewarding parts of the job, but that's one piece that was really difficult. So just being okay with not working right now. And I was always afraid that, when I did stop working, am I going to be bored? Am I going to be just not fulfilled at all? So just trying to get through that, and then kind of enjoying a little slower life too. I mean, it's on the flip side, but just trying to figure out. And then I'm like, it's only been since November 30th. You need to just rest or relax. And, that part of it, I have always had trouble doing.
And you're so not alone, which is also the point of this. So I love the class reunion concept where we are reminiscing. But I've told you many times, and I say this to myself, the reason I'm doing this is at this time in our life to pause and reflect. Sometimes it's good to go backwards before you redefine. Maybe there's things that come up that you realize I want to reinforce again, or change or redirect. And I've said to you, it's like a love letter to our younger selves.
It is.
We're not done. And what does that look like? And how much fun do I want to make sure I have? For the second half of life here. It's very important to put some priority on yourself after you've done it with your kids and your family. I know it's a juggling act, but you were still a great mom and did all those types of things. So what does, you have a husband, Dave, and what will that look like for the two of you? So I'm going to leave you with a couple of rapid round questions from the 80s. So Breakfast Club or Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Ooh.
Classics, right?
Oh, I love both of them. Breakfast Club, because, all the psychological aspects, I think.
I think so too. The Cosby Show or Family Ties?
Family Ties.
Back to the Future or Ghostbusters?
Back to the Future.
Michael Jackson or Madonna? That's
Madonna.
both good. Oh, really?
Madonna.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, half the stuff we wore, we had pearl necklaces, and I would wrap them around and make bracelet out of it.
Yes.
And we were dripped in pearls wherever we went. And then McDonald's or Burger King?
See, back then I want to say I was Burger King because we went in high school all the time. But McDonald's, Diet Coke, and fries are my favorite. Still.
Oh, their Diet Coke's the best.
Yes.
And I just have to say really quick, your time at Taco Bell. How many days did you work there?
Well, I don't even, my kids die because they love Taco Bell. And I'm like, they go, Mom, why aren't you eating this? I said, I will never forget. I was the meat stirrer. I stirred the meat. And I will never be able to eat Taco Bell again.
It was a surprise to me when you said, I got a job at Taco Bell. And I was like, you're kidding me. Because we knew the menu backwards and forwards for Burger King and McDonald's. Taco Bell, you're like, everyone wants a special order. And I don't know all the things on the menu. And you would come home exhausted. And I was like, that's
because we always babysat. I babysat since I was 10 or 11. So getting a job like that was, that didn't last very long though. Probably a week.
Yes. I can't thank you enough. I do think that our listeners are really going to enjoy your story and our friendship. And there's so much more to uncover. So I'd love to have you back again. But I certainly thank you so much for your time today. It meant so much to me, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for doing this because I really think it's going to reconnect a lot of people. And we get so busy in our lives, and I can't wait to see other people that are on your podcast and see what they're doing. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This is wonderful.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, my friend.
All right, friends, that's it for this episode of Class Reunion Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show, write us a review, and share this podcast with a friend. Until next time.